And so for me, leadership has gone from being something that is very tangible to something that you almost walk into. For me, I think I can walk into an office or someone's workplace, and you can feel the strength of the leadership there because you can see the people and that sort of thing. So if you can't communicate as a leader, or if you're in an executive role, I think you got a problem. I think you're really going to struggle. You listen with the intent. If you need to respond, learning how to respond. If you need just to listen to learn, do that. You need to listen to understand what people are expecting of you, and you do that. And it's all off. The end result from listening can be a whole various things. But if you don't listen, you're just never going to know. We talk about dynamic and flexible environments. Well, that part and parcel of being a leader as well. You've got to accept that life is different now. Employees are different. I'm not going to start quoting Maslow, but people have different motivating factors, and you've just got to accept that. Any leadership team has to. The only thing you can't treat. There's no one size fits all with employees now. You have to adapt your style to those people. Otherwise, you've lost them. And I actually think it's quite refreshing.
So before we jump into the podcast, I wanted to start this one a little bit differently and put an ask out there for everyone listening in. We've been looking at the data lately and noticed that many people who listen to this podcast haven't actually subscribed to it yet. It would mean the absolute world to me for those who are listening in to subscribe. By doing so, the more subscribers we get, the more high quality leaders and experts we get on the podcast and share their stories with you. And from that, the more we all learn. So thanks in advance. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Creating Synergy podcast. I'm Daniel Franco, your host and CEO of SynergyIQ. And today we have the pleasure of hosting a great man and a fabulous human being on the show, Stewart Lammin, CEO of Flinders Port Holdings. Flinders Port Holdings is a company that plays a crucial role in the South Australian economy, connecting businesses to companies and suppliers all over the world. The majority of goods that you buy from the shops here locally have come in through the gates of Flinders Port Holdings. So with over 35 years of experience in the ports industry, Stewart shares with us his knowledge and experiences of the industry and all his leadership lessons along the way. In this episode, we discuss the importance of the logistics and ports industry. We learn about the story behind Flinders Ports and how it became to be one of the top 10 companies here in South Australia, with an annual turnover of 200 million and employ over 700 people and support over 6,000 jobs here locally. We also discuss his thoughts on what a great CEO looks like, the key behaviours that Stewart looks for in his leadership team, the art of holding people accountable, and explore the importance of listening and seeking first to understand. So without further ado, please enjoy my chat with the inspiring Stewart Lammin. So welcome back to the Creating Synergy podcast. My name is Daniel Franco, and today on the show, we have a great man by the name of Stewart Lammin, CEO of Flinders Ports. Welcome.
Thank you, Daniel.
Well, Flinders Ports Holdings.
Flinders Port Holdings.
Flinders Port Holdings.
That's it.
Yes.
Flinders Ports.
Yeah, we'll just call it that.
Easy.
It's easier.
Yeah.
So for those who don't know, Flinders Port Holdings is ranked one of South Australia's top 10 companies with annual turnover of 200 plus million, employees 700 plus people, support 6,000 plus jobs, like remarkable business here in South Australia. And I'm almost certain that at some point it's touched every single South Australian, right? Is that correct?
Well, I mean, if you look at, depending on the business now, I mean, we own the Adelaide Container Terminal, for instance, which if you look around this room or at home, every washing machine or television set or piece of furniture probably came through the container terminal. So
100%.
You do touch people.
You do. So let's go into the Flinders stuff a bit later. Yeah. I wouldn't mind sort of unpacking your story and who is Stewart Lammin. So to understand your context and to understand the trajectory of your life to where you are today, what do we need to understand about your earliest context?
Oh, look, going back, Daniel, where does it start? I'm a Pom by birth.
Yep.
So I'm
we won't hold that.
Born in the East End as well. So came out to Australia, I think, how old was I? 9. So went to a Sydney boys' school with a bit of a strong London, almost Cockney accent, I guess. And so the early start of resilience, I think, started with that. So, we immigrated out initially for, as my father said, 3 months.
Yep.
Dad used to travel for 6-9 months of the year in the UK.
So he was involved in the port space too.
In ships, shipbroking and chartering.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's my life has basically been about ships.
Yeah,
which is pretty much what it has been. Although, to be honest, when I left school, I think I might have mentioned to you before. I think I was the only boy out of 170 that didn't apply for university.
Yes.
And then really a bit lost and Dad,
was it what was the reason? They just weren't connected to what you were doing? Didn't find anything you love? Or?
Absolutely. I think it was. I think when I came out initially, the intention for me, especially from my father's side and my family, was that I would go back and play football because we were, I was basically born and bred in West Ham. So we were all West Ham.
So football was in the soccer. Not AFL.
Yeah, the real football.
Yeah, the real football.
With the round ball. And that was really what I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
And it was kind of growing up, that was always the intention. And, at the age, a fairly young age, knees went on, the body gave up, and that was the end of that before I left school. So then it was a case of, well, what do I do now? Yeah. So it was kind of like being probably not for the first time, being lost a little bit in, where I go. So, and then Dad said to me, well, you're not laying on the couch any longer after maybe 6 months of not doing much. So he said, you either work for me or you're out and you find your own way in life.
Yeah.
So that was the start of it.
Yeah.
Luckily, at the end of the day, yeah.
Yeah, sets you up in good stead.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Do you have anything that you look back on and smile and you look back and laugh about in your junior that really sort of shaped you as a human being?
What I look back and smile, I mean, this will sound really strange. I mean, I had a really, I'd say a really lucky, privileged upbringing.
Yep.
If you put what we just talked about to one side.
Yeah.
I mean, I was really lucky. I mean, I have great fond memories of being a young kid in England and growing up, and then I came out to Australia, and growing up, as I said, my life.
How old were you when you came out again?
I was 9 when I came out. Yeah, I grew up playing sport. I went to a great school. I had, I've got friends from school that are still my friends now.
Yeah.
And so life was pretty good. You can't dwell on everything. I mean, I was really fortunate in my upbringing.
Yeah. So what happened? How did you then grow through the ranks? So you went off and started work with the old man, or
started with Dad?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then let's continue that story.
Well, how long was I with Dad? I was with Dad for about 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
And really interesting business for me. What shipbrokers do is basically, a simple example is BHP will come to you with 100,000 tonnes of coal to move from Newcastle to Rotterdam.
Yeah.
You then call what we go on the market. So you then go out and find a ship. But it's all competitive.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like if you've played sport, obviously, the competitive nature, you get a little bit of that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And for me, I never, I've never had a defined career path in my mind. It was, the start for me was always find a job that you love, find a job that you enjoy. A learning I got from my father was work hard.
Yeah.
And then the pieces generally fall into place if you take the opportunities that come from that. And so that was how I really started. And then I left that after about, I think it's about 5 or 6 years, because it was almost reverse nepotism. He had offices in various places around the world, and I always wanted to travel. We work in London or New York, whatever. And he always sent someone else. He would always send someone else. It was kind of like, Dad, I can't do this.
Yeah, I need to
make my own way.
But you cut your teeth in the sales marketing space with the old man.
A bit of everything,
From a competitive point of view, going out there and trying to win work.
Yeah, and it was, we really specialised in the mining sector as well. That was on the cusp, things like the coal industry, like the coal industry were really big, and iron ore and things like that. So that was the start of me, I've had, an involvement with the mining sector pretty much through everything I've done.
Yeah.
And through ships. So that was really the start of it.
And then you moved on to Global Shipping Line. Now, I might get this wrong. Is it Hamburg Sud?
Hamburg Sud.
Hamburg Sud.
Hamburg Sud. You got a bit close.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, that was so I actually took a year off after.
Okay.
Again.
Yeah.
Kind of like, what do I do?
Just a hiatus.
Just no idea what I was going to do. And this ad came up and I went for the job, and you get lucky sometimes. And the managing director knew Dad from London.
Yeah, well.
And so that was a very short conversation.
Okay, when can you start?
That was pretty much it. So, I spent 15 years with the German ship owner.
Yeah.
Again, fascinating business, family business.
Yeah.
Shipping wasn't core business. They were involved in food and beverage was a big part of the business. They owned hotels and banks, one of those typical private European families.
So 15 years there, you're obviously moving your way up the ranks. Is there anything that you can take away from your time at a sort of that large international business that might be relevant to those listening in?
Oh, look, I think what I took from that was it was almost, talk about opportunities. And I think from a fairly young age, I was given an opportunity to move domestically, and I love, I grew up in Sydney. My mates were in Sydney. I love Sydney. Everything was about Sydney. But it was kind of an opportunity to move at that stage to Melbourne.
Yeah.
I thought, well, if you don't take the opportunity, you just never know. And so it was probably the learning for me. And then I moved around the country a fair bit with them, almost moving from one office to the next.
Yeah.
And for me, it was just, for me, when opportunities come, for me, you got to take them.
Yeah.
For me, I had to take them.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you just sit there and stagnate.
Yeah.
But I think career-wise, it probably, it did. Once you start moving for a company, you tend to start moving up the ranks. Yeah.
So where did you end up on the sort of what role did you end up with before you decided to?
So I ran the last role because I came to Adelaide from Melbourne. Yeah. So I was state manager in Victoria and Tasmania, which within that corporate environment was probably one of the top couple of 2 or 3 jobs there.
Yeah, wow.
And the only reason I left there was because I had moved. When I was in Melbourne, they wanted me to go back to Sydney. I thought, no, I've done enough moves. I'm in Melbourne.
So you didn't want to go back to the, inverted commas, home state?
Yeah, I thought I was, I'm back in Melbourne. I like Melbourne. At that stage, you think
So Adelaide tickled your fancy, is that?
that's the strange thing. And then I wasn't in Melbourne too long, and it was clear after that for me that my career path was done. With this company. I think once you say no, that's the finish. I think, to be honest, I think the end result probably would have taken over the business in Sydney, which again my choice was that I took the decision I didn't want to do that. And then the Australians, I'm looking to be settled, and then the opportunity come to Adelaide.
So tell us about the opportunity. What happened? Was it always a succession plan to come into a CE role, or what was the
No, because if you look at our industry, working for a ship owner and working for ports, it's kind of like they're very different. It's almost like from a ship's perspective. So like the ports are they're that mob. They're the landlord that just take rents and do that sort of thing. Which is not true.
No.
So it was almost like a strange move. But a guy I'd worked with a lot at Hamburg Süd, he's from Adelaide, and he came back to Adelaide. He just rang me up one day and said, "Look, there's this great job going that I think you'd really enjoy. It's a port operation. It's privatised. It's not government, and there's real scope." He said, "I think there's real scope for you to do that." So I thought, well, I've never lived in Adelaide. It's the one place I haven't lived. My wife at the time had family in Adelaide, and so again. Opportunity came up, and I thought, I'm going to take this.
There you go.
And
obviously raised a few eyebrows and did some good things and made things happen. Bit of a mover and shaker. Got the CEO gig. After how many years were you at?
It would have been probably 12 years. So it was a long time. But the strange contradiction for me, Dan, is I get bored very quickly.
Yeah.
So I like change, but I've only really had 3 or 4 different jobs, which means I've had longevity in jobs, but I've been lucky that I've had opportunities to move within those jobs.
Yeah.
You also take your own initiative to try and create jobs as well, to be honest with you.
Well, it's not jobs, but you've worked for 3 or 4 different organisations, and then you've had more roles that you've
within that organisation,
And so what was it about Stewart that they couldn't turn down for the CE role?
God, I'm not sure if I'm the right person to answer. Look, I think, I always had I think for me, I've always been really passionate about this industry. Well, when I moved from Hamburg Süd to Flinders Ports, again, as I said, it's a job I really enjoy, but I'm really passionate about it. And people say, it's fixed infrastructure. How can you be interested in fixed infrastructure? But it's around trade, it's around growth, it's around, even to me, maybe I'm being a little bit romantic, but my sense is we're a really important business to this state. We're the gateway for thousands of importers and exporters, and to me that kind of resonated with me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that showed out in what I did, but also I've had exposure to the Flinders Ports board from a very early stage in the career, and I think you learn to manage up.
Yeah.
To be honest, and that's part and parcel of what you do. And you work hard.
Yeah,
it's as simple as that.
Yeah.
So,
and be a genuine human being in the same right. Yeah.
There's no point in it being the BS meter for people.
Correct. 100%. How have you seen the industry evolve over your 30 odd years in the industry? How have you is there? I know you've gone from ship to ports, but I mean, in my layman mind, it's all connected, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So how have you seen it evolve? I'm really interested in the today versus the yesteryear.
Look, the pure concept of a ship turning up in a port and loading cargo.
It's pretty basic.
It's pretty basic.
Yeah.
But I think what's changed, probably with a lot of companies, is just how we operate our business and what we the critical parts of our business. And, previously, it was purely around the numbers, it was purely around the infrastructure, and that was really it. But you overlay that now, and I think anyone in a leadership role, for me, I shouldn't talk about everybody else, but for me, it's a much better time now to be a leader than it was, even probably 30 years. And I was lucky because I was fairly young when I got put into leadership roles, because there's so much more to it now. There's so much more. We talk about sustainability. We talk about managing our people. We talk about we talked about digital. We talk about all these things now, which we never talked about before. They were almost business enablers, and they were in the background and they were doing them. But now they're seen as they create value for businesses.
They're at the forefront.
They're at the forefront, which means your skill set as a leader has to be much broader. But gee, it's a lot more interesting than it used to be. It's you're across so many other things.
Do you think it's more difficult? Do you think, because back in the day it was do as I say, and now it's a bit different. It's we're there to serve.
It's only difficult if you're not prepared to embrace it. I think as a leader, if you're not prepared to listen, you've got to start listening more now.
Correct.
I think that's a big part of it, and you got to be prepared to say, well, okay, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I've made a mistake, and you've got to listen to people. But then on the flip side, you've also got to be a bit braver now as well, because people do, people think more about strategy. They think more about the future. They think more about culture, and they want clarity around it. But you've also got to accept that whilst you've got to listen, what that means is quite often you're going to upset people.
Yeah, correct.
And that's
you're the ultimate decision maker, aren't you? So.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I wouldn't say it's more challenging.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anything about the ships, the ports, the logistics industry in that space that often gets misinterpreted by the public, or that sort of ruffles your feathers a little bit? Because not many people, I think, like you said, it's pretty basic. Ship comes in, unload the ship, move on, get it out to the suppliers, and then the consumers can grab a hold of it. So is there anything that you think is misinterpreted?
Look, I wouldn't say misinterpret. I think we're not well understood. I mean, people don't understand our industry that well. I think, as you said, we're one of the largest businesses in South Australia. We're a large employer. I think if you talk to most people, they probably don't know who we are. And in some ways that has been intentional. In other ways, you take a comparison, say Adelaide Airport. I mean, if someone sees a plane flying across them, they think of laying in the Maldives. They see a ship and it's a ship.
It's a ship.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
So I don't think,
I always wonder what's in those containers. There's literally the thing that goes through my mind is what is in those containers on that ship?
That's the question that everyone asks. What do you bring in? What comes in? Well, there's literally thousands of things that come in.
So is my new car coming in? Is that how it works? All the automotive industry. You don't see the product; you just see the container and then.
In a car we do, because cars come in what we call a ro-ro, so it rolls on, rolls off. So it just drives on and off a ship. So
really?
If you go to Outer Harbour, you'll probably see your car sitting in our facility at Outer Harbour, getting ready to go to the dealer to deliver to you.
There you go.
Containers, you don't
So I got a
see.
little. So you can just help me get something quicker. Is that not?
Depends what car you've got, Daniel. I say that not all cars come through Adelaide.
No, I'm only staring. Yeah. I think like the one thing that's always surprised me, and like this is probably it's a silly question, but it's one thing that's always gone through my mind. I've done a bit of property developing. I've built a few homes, moved in. I do like my background's in that construction space, so I love the building industry. My dad's a builder, dad's a builder, all the above. Right, I'm Italian.
Yeah,
you know, concrete's
like
concrete's in my blood. We water the concrete, right? Like that's actually a thing. I do that. Like you might laugh. I actually water the concrete. I wash the concrete with the water when it's not water restricted.
I remember the days when we didn't pay for water, and I could understand that.
Anyway, I digress. I've moved a few homes, right? I moved a few times. In fact, I think it was my daughter was 7 years old on her 7th birthday, and about a week later, we were moving into a 7th home. Wow. And that's just purely because we developed, we built, we moved in.
Yep.
Tax purposes, it works out better when you do that than other reasons. So every time we moved, something was destroyed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You'd pack it, you'd wrap it. I remember I'd throw the fridge in the truck. I'd wrap it with everything that I needed to wrap it with, put the table up against it. As I pulled out and unpacked it, my fridge is destroyed because the table's moved. And how does everything rock up so perfectly?
We don't pack it.
Yeah, I know.
We don't unpack it.
My mind boggles at how things just don't move on the ocean.
Well, they do move.
Yeah.
But I guess it's the way, and a lot of work goes. I don't say we don't unpack. We do. We have a business that does pack and unpack containers. And you look at how, the timber, what we call dunnaging that goes in and to protect it. It's pretty extensive.
It would be.
Yeah. I mean, I've got
a lot of cardboard, a lot of styrofoam.
which is a pain when you get it home. You've got to get rid of it.
Yeah.
But I mean, when we get stuff coming home, I've never got anything damaged. And sometimes I think, because I know what happens on the sea, on the ocean, and some of the weather that these things come through, you think, how the hell does that happen?
Well, you see some video, YouTube, whatever it might be, of containers falling into the ocean.
Yeah.
What happens there?
They actually sit. They're like an iceberg. So
really?
You see the tip, but you don't see actually what's under. They're actually a hazard. But it's.
Well, so they don't get retrieved ever.
Well, you try and. How do you pick up a 20-ton
I don't know, but isn't that littering? Like, how do you then you have an environmentally?
Do you know what? I've never actually asked what happens. My sense is they probably wash up somewhere. Or they sink.
Yeah.
I guess at the end of the day,
someone's new cars.
I'm going to find out with that. Cars don't come in containers.
Oh, that's right. You're right. You do. Yeah. Someone's new couch.
If your car goes overboard, you're in trouble.
There's some fish sitting at the bottom, or mermaid sitting at the bottom of the sea on a new couch. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good segue to what, for context. We mentioned earlier Flinders Port Holdings, which is a few businesses rolled into one. Can you tell us sort of a little bit about all the different businesses? Obviously, containers is one of them you've spoken about. What do you guys do? I guess
short history of the business. We were the Flinders Ports was born, I think, in 2001. We were privatised by then was the Liberal government before the Labor government took over. So that was the 7 port assets. So seven of the 10 commercial ports in South Australia. We've got a lot of ports in South Australia.
Yeah.
So we own 7 of them, which is Thevenard, Port Lincoln, Port Pirie, Wallaroo, Giles, Port Adelaide, Klein Point, which is a little port that brings in limestone for Adelaide Brighton. That was the first part of the business. But again, we were a little bit different to the other landlord. Now the eastern states have been privatised or have been privatised over the years. We also control the water. So we own the fixed assets.
Can you explain it? You control the water?
What we call channels and berth pockets.
Okay.
So we have operating leases across those as well. So we're responsible for the water side of it as well.
Yeah, nice. So people pay to go through that channel?
That's right.
It's like a rent fee almost.
Yeah, they pay what we call harbour service charge, which is for the ship to come through the channel and go up alongside the wharf.
Yeah.
And we also have we've got land leases as well, which were 99-year leases. So that was the Flinders Port. That's the core business.
Yep.
And then we evolved. The container terminal was owned by DP World, which is from Dubai.
Yep.
And we had a passive, I think it's a 40% equity stake in the business. Passive in as much as we wanted to ensure that the business kept on investing because containers are a big part of our business. And through various reasons, we ended up taking control of that business in 2012. So we own and operate the Adelaide Container Terminal. So I think we're the only business, probably it's certainly in Australia, that owns the ports and also the container terminal.
So not a bad little monopoly.
Look, we never set out to do it. To be perfectly honest, but this nothing against DP World. They run their business. They're highly successful and container operator, but we had different views on how to run the business. And when you have a single port operation, you've got it's constant investment, which we had to be. So for us, it made sense for us to take it over, and it's a good business. There's no doubt about that.
So when we drive through Port Adelaide and there's containers stacked up on top of each other, that's your
That's
site?
our facility, one of our facilities at Outer Harbour.
Yeah.
And then we own what we call, Flinders Logistics is a business, and again, we never set out. It's almost like a supply chain business.
Yeah.
We never set out to be like that. But we found probably, again, 10, 12 years ago, a lot of cargo was moving away from Adelaide and going to the likes of Darwin or Newcastle or Geelong, simply because of underinvestment in the state from the existing stevedores then. So I thought either we get involved in this or we just watch cargo move away. So that was how that was born. So, the ports business is the core business. It's the jewel in the crown. That's what it is. But it's all about trade. I mean, everything about us is ships and trade.
Yeah.
And so, we've evolved because we've had to.
Yeah.
And that's really the history.
So when you say you never set out, I mean, I'm putting strategy in hat on here. This would, to buy and acquire a business or add a new department or however or a new business within under the existing structure, you have to strategize for that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I know that you have a 50-year plan in place.
We do. We have a 50-year master plan.
So I'm going to digress. How do you come up with a 50-year? How do you know what's happening in 50 years' time?
Look, I think if you look at it, Dan, a lot of what we do in a master plan, look, you almost forget the 50 years.
Yeah.
To me, it's a master plan.
Yeah, okay.
Because a key part of that for us is it's all about building, a lot of it's about building capacity within for the future, because as trade grows, you get more ships, you've got to turn them around, you've got to have capacity to do it. So for us, it's understanding those triggers that mean you've got to do something about improving capacity or increasing capacity.
Yeah.
So the time frame is almost irrelevant. If the master plan says in 25 years' time you're going to have to do this, but it actually happens in year 13, as long as you know the triggers and you've got the mitigation strategy in place, that's the important part of it.
Yeah.
And we have, our assets are long life assets as well.
Yeah. I just think about it from the perspective of 1973 was 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Is that right? It is, right?
Yeah.
I'm right. Oh, yeah, around
50,
there.
yeah.
Yeah, 53 is about. If we're wrong, just edit that out, Gav. No, I think we're right? And so in 1973, I don't believe we're predicting that the level of automation, like, do you know what I mean? Like, so the exponential growth of the digital and all the above that goes with it, not to mention the volume that is potentially coming in.
Yep.
How do you work with that?
Look, you've got to work with a lot of assumptions.
Yeah, no doubt.
But again, it's the automation piece is a really interesting piece, because whilst we know in the future, our business is going to move further down the path of automation. I mean, whether we like it or not, that's the way it will operate.
Yep.
But again, it's understanding, because a lot of what you do is triggered by for us, it's triggered by volume.
Yep.
It's triggered by capacity, it's triggered by a whole bunch of things. And you have a whole lot of disruptors that might come in between that. But you've got to take a view on when you will look to automate and in what form you automate. I mean, the terminal is a great example, is that we went through a process for, probably a couple of years of looking at how we will automate the terminal. And when we got to the decision, it was kind of like, well, it's almost obsolete now. And that's the danger you come up with. And in the interim, there's been a whole, technology keeps on advancing. But at some stage, you've got to pull the trigger. Yeah. And you've got to do it. Yeah. So that's, again, you got to take that, you've got to control when that happens.
Yeah, you got to be fluid. I think where I go, though, is back to the point of when you said we never planned for that. So none of these other businesses were in your strategy. They were just opportunistic.
The container terminal certainly was I'd say opportunistic. I think we had if you look at history, we probably had a couple of opportunities to take control of it early, which we didn't take. But that was a decision that was made because, again, as I said, container trade is a really important part of our business as a port operation.
Yeah.
And so having someone else control your destiny in such an important part of your business, it's great if it works.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't work, you've got to do something about it.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
We're going through similar to that with our process at the moment, and we are a services-based business. We help organisations through large-scale change, but it's always at the to manage the whole project. There's always people within the organisation that we have to work with, and so it can be difficult when you're dealing with so many different types of stakeholders that get involved.
And we've spoken a bit about things like change and that, and when you buy a business that is so different to your existing core business, there's a whole bunch of complexities that come into that.
Oh, without doubt. It's just the merger itself of the two cultures clashing together and procedures and bringing them all together. It's
complex.
Yeah, 100%.
And then we decided to throw another business on top of that just to...
and is that is Flinders Port Holdings, is it continual growth? Is it still looking out? I mean, I know you've recently invested in a gentleman who's actually been his business Complexica, which is an AI-based company. Matthew McCaleb. I always get it. Matt McCalevich. I always get McCalevich or McCalevich. Yeah. He's been on here twice, actually. I should get it. We did one on AI, right? We did one episode on AI. And the other one was on his growth and his story. A remarkable human being. Absolutely. The investment in AI, what does that mean for the ports industry? What does that look like for you guys?
Oh, look, for us, Dan, we've, again, like a lot of businesses, we've got a really aggressive path forward to our whole digital piece and our tech piece and our what have you. And we were finding the difficulty for us is getting hold of resources, getting BAs, it's getting projects. Yeah. And we were doing a project with Matt and with Complexica that for part of our container terminal, we're putting AI into part of our yard management, which takes a lot of the interpretive work away from people into. Is
that with Larry? Is it Larry?
That's Larry. Yeah.
I don't.
And just talking to Matt, and they were keen to getting into the port space. And there's a bunch of other things that we've got to do that will be needs to be AI enabled. And we looked and said, well, this actually solves a lot of issues for us. It's a business we understand. We know it's part of the future for us.
He's around the corner.
He's a great guy.
He's a champion.
Matt's started a couple of really successful businesses.
Yeah, I'll go back and listen to we've had him on. His story is amazing. It's pretty good.
It is an incredible story.
And he's a natural born salesman, though.
Oh, he's great.
I absolutely love that about him.
I sit there with that thinking, hang on, this is really cool, but I've got to start thinking about outcomes here.
100%.
But for us, it was, and look, this was actually quite, it wasn't a large investment, but for a port business to actually buy into a tech business, it was kind of like, there were people going, huh?
Yeah,
really?
Eyebrows raised.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that was part, we had to, kind of sell the story as to why it was needed. And for every reason that we invested in it, it's become successful. So.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. Well, kudos to where you guys are at. I think one thing that has really, this is completely sort of moving sideways, but still obviously within the trade and Flinders Ports, but global supply chains have sort of really been affected over the past 2-3 years now, isn't it? And I think the main question I have is, why is everything taking so long to be delivered? I know people who have ordered a Toyota 12 plus months ago and they still haven't received this thing, and they're saying it's probably another 6 months away. Couches are taking 20 to 30 weeks now to come in some instances. Is this a manufacturing thing, or is this something to do with the port? How does it all work in your eyes?
My sense that it's we're probably in a perfect storm at the moment,
or
we were in a perfect storm. We've been through 2.5-3 years of a pandemic, which created a whole bunch of issues around. Not the least was there's a lot of cash out there. So people with demand
less travel, more buying.
Absolutely. So there was a lot of disposable income out there. Ships, COVID, what it did, especially for a country like Australia, you look at Shanghai, which has pretty much been closed down. So you've had ships continuing to go into Shanghai, not to be able to get in or out. So they're just sitting there waiting.
Yeah.
You've had no ships. The flow of containers has been constrained. So if you don't have ships moving, you don't have containers coming in or out. And the reality for Adelaide is that we're a small port. That's stark reality. If you look at container shipping, is almost like it's almost like a bus route. You call at each port, and you have a time when you have to get into that port. And the reality is, if you have to get back on schedule, then you will omit ports, of which we suffer from that a lot. And then you
So Adelaide suffered from that because of its size.
Because of its size, and so we had a lot of ships that we, theoretically, the container trade should be pretty simple because the ship comes in at the same time every week. It's methodical. You plan your labour, you plan everything. That got thrown out the window.
Yeah, wow. So what happened with all the orders? They just said you got to wait for them.
You got to wait. Yeah. But then you overlay that with, you probably had a manufacturing issue as well. You can't have a constant of, a few years of staff being laid off, staff not going to work, and plants closing. It's just a perfect.
So, just taking a bird's eye view, Sydney versus Adelaide, Sydney wouldn't have felt some of these delays that Adelaide's felt?
Oh, look, you still get the delays. But it was probably a little bit worse in Adelaide.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. That's interesting. So what about what was the company that the ship blocked the canal? Did that affect trade as well? No, not really.
That more affects the east-west trade. So
so nothing to do with it.
Not so much.
So you talked about COVID and how it obviously affected the amount of trade that was going and being done on our ports. What does that happen? What happens to you and Flinders Port in that time? How do you manage? If you're talking about a bus route and all of a sudden this bus is not coming up, that means that people aren't going to wait at the bus stop, right? So what happens with your staff in that situation? How do you manage the complexities of that world?
We're a fixed cost business.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to manage them.
Yeah.
So you look at our workforce of I think it's 730 people. The vast majority of those, probably 600 plus, are wharfies, people that work on the wharf.
Yeah.
And they work on rosters and they work on shifts, and they're still there. We in fact our business grew during COVID.
Wow. Yeah. Even with the lesser ships coming through.
Yeah, but you've got to remember the first couple of years, things were
you're an essential service, weren't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
things were far better.
Yeah.
I think in March 20, 21, I've forgotten there. Yeah. When everything, we got a problem here. I think if you'd have said how we ended up, I'd have bitten your hand off at that stage because trade continued to flow.
Yeah.
But for a period of time, it became a health issue.
Yeah.
More than a trade issue.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you, how do you manage a team that 600 people plus on the wharf, packing ships that we've got a zero policy here in Australia, but unpacking ships that potentially could be riddled with a virus based on the crew that are on board. How did you manage that situation?
Look, I'm not a person that suffers from stress. I don't think I suffer from stress. Other people will probably say yes, he does.
But I need to get some tips off you. Maybe we'll talk about that for half an hour.
Yeah, but when that first started, that's probably the only time I can really remember really laying awake at night thinking, how do we manage this? And that was purely around.
Because no amount of hand sanitizer is going to fix this problem.
As I said, you can send, not to try and trivialise it, but you can send 120 people from administrative people home with laptops and computers, and they can operate from home.
Yeah,
I got 600 people working in the wharves, and we don't know what this thing is.
No,
I don't know the impact on these people's health and their lives and their well-being. I have no idea, and their families, and so that was probably the only time I thought, this is really stressful. I took the view, you got to trust the health people. You got to do that. So that became a management issue for the well-being of our people. But the flip side for that, the learning from me through COVID was, I remember thinking I've got to, we'll get this committee started, we'll get policies in place, how we manage this. Before I'd even started finishing the email, I had an executive team that it was all done.
Yeah.
And I kind of sat there and think, you know what, I think we're going to be okay through this. And it's I said to you before, you wouldn't wish a COVID on anybody.
No.
But for a leader, I think when you look back in hindsight, the learnings that you had from it, and it was so challenging, but I think good leaders really stood up.
Yeah, 100%.
And it was an opportunity for businesses.
Yeah.
I'd like to think we're a better business now than we were when this thing started.
Yeah, I agree. I would categorically say I reckon I did 3 MBAs within that period, right? Like the amount that you learn, all the little different nooks and crannies that you think you have to think about.
Yeah.
Not to mention, because we're a service-based business, we're working with multiple organisations, large-scale organisations, BHPs, these types of companies, where they're dealing with their issues and we're working with them on change.
Yep.
Like, so your scope just broadens,
explodes,
doesn't it? Yeah. So,
Yeah.
do you think I had this conversation with some friends the other day? In fact, it might have even been it wasn't from friends. It was in the office actually with the team. If you like I use the Toyota example. If you go out and buy a black Toyota, you all of a sudden see a black Toyota everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So your senses become heightened to the black Toyota. Do you think that is the same with opportunity? Do you think if you have the openness of opportunity, and I'll talk about Flinders Port as well, you say we didn't set out, but this opportunity came up. If you have the mindset of taking opportunity when it comes, you're more chance of you seeing that opportunity should it arise, or do you think it's just pot luck that something pops up?
No, I think it's if part of your thought process is that you look for an opportunity in everything that happens.
Yeah.
Quite often you're going to find an opportunity.
Correct.
there.
I agree.
I mean, it's like pretty much everything we do. The downs. Say something happens to trade or something happens to something like that. But for us, there's an opportunity because there's an opportunity we have to grow somewhere else. So there's an opportunity for there to get into another part of the business or provide another service. You can't just sit there and look at the negative on things.
Yeah, agreed. I think it's the power of positive mindset, isn't it, really?
And as you say, you see it.
Yeah.
You constantly see it.
Yes. Flinders was named 2021 Deloitte's Best Managed Companies. Is that a bit of a head wobble over there? What does that look like? What does it mean to be 2021 one of the best managed companies? Obviously, my name wasn't on the list there. I think.
I think we're up for it again this year.
Oh, really? Well done. Congrats.
Thank you. Look, it's for me something like that. You got to get it in context.
Yeah.
It's a recognition. When it says best managed businesses, it's we're only as good as the people.
No doubt.
That work in the business. And for me, it's just really, it's an acknowledgement for the 700 people we have to say, hey, look, guys and girls, this is what we've been awarded, and you're part and parcel of this. And for me, it's a nice story to be able to tell everybody.
It is. What does a great managed company look like? I mean, what are you doing that's standing out from the crowd? What can we learn from you and the team?
Look, I think it's pretty. I mean, management is pretty broad now. If you talk about management, or to me, it's still leadership.
100%.
rather than management. And I think it's an acknowledgement for people that when you say a company that's got good leaders, we talk about culture, and to me, culture comes from the top. Leadership now is about setting the example. And we've spoken before. It's about selling the story. It's about painting the pictures for people. It's about creating an environment that people can come and be who they are and be innovative, and it's a safe place for people. It's that whole part of it. It's not just being a technical specialist. More importantly now, it's providing the environment for people just to flourish and come into the business. To me, and we talk about culture, and we talk about diversity. We talk about this, thousands of things, and it's great for the outcome of the business. But for me, the important part is that is an outcome, but that's not why you do what we do as leaders. You do what we do as leaders because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah,
it's as simple as that. If you don't get that mindset, then you never change the culture. You never change the dial. And so for me, leadership has gone from being something that is very tangible to something that you almost walk into. For me, I think I can walk into an office or someone's workplace, and you can feel the strength of the leadership there because you can see the people and that sort of thing. So,
do you or have you handpicked all your leaders?
No, I've got out of a team of 7. That's right. I think a team of 7. There's three new and 2 in new roles.
Yep.
So it's been a fair change.
Yeah. So I'm just thinking about leadership versus management, right? Like the old model is you've been in the role for a while, therefore you're the best at the role, and therefore you get promoted to the leader. And we all are aware that that's the wrong model, but through lack of people or lack of work experience or whatever it might be, the same promotions keep happening over and over and over again.
Yeah.
From an executive level, though, I'm really interested in. We are targeting at an executive level our audience here with the Creating Synergy podcast. What are the key behaviours that you look for in your leadership team to become one of those best managed organisations? You say you just do what's right. You do it because it's right. What if the knowledge of the people don't understand that there is a better way to do right? If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is what's almost a skill set that I look for an executive team?
Correct.
First thing I look at is someone who's an independent thinker.
Yeah.
I like someone who is prepared to, a lot of what we do at that executive level is around something like, say, strategy is a simple example. I want people involved. I want people to have a view. I want people not necessarily to you don't have to agree with me. I'm happy to debate it for you. So I think independent thinking is something that's really important for me.
Yep.
I like good communicators. I think if you can't communicate as a leader or if you're in an executive role, I think you got a problem.
I agree.
I think you're really going to struggle to get there. And it comes around, EQ is something that we didn't talk about much 10 years ago, maybe a bit longer. That's really important now. If someone doesn't possess that, again, it's a bit like if you have no comms ability, you're going to struggle.
It's interesting, the EQ one. I'm a massive believer in it. You're obviously someone with high emotional intelligence. Is the ability to pick emotional intelligence because you are an emotionally intelligent person? Do you think that's the skill set? How do you actually judge for it? Is there a chart that you work to? Do you get people to do diagnostic tools before they come in? I don't know. Or do you just have this gut feeling that you go, yeah, this person knows what they're talking about? I'm a gut person. Yeah, I agree.
You can do it. And look, I'm certainly not against training and education, that sort of thing. But a lot of what we do is, for me, a lot of what I do is gut.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you learn pretty quick. I reckon within a couple of minutes.
Yeah,
you've got a view
I think
on
so.
someone.
Do you table that with your team? Do you tailor? My gut, is the gut a decision maker in all this? And you as an organisation, because that it is something that you would have some really extremely intelligent and emotionally intelligent human beings sitting at your executive table.
Absolutely,
it's a
smart group of people.
Yeah. Do you actually use the gut as a decision? What's everyone's gut feel here? Is that a decision making technique?
I think it's an important part of it. But if how do I put this? If a decision is made on gut, it's got to be me. Because if it doesn't work out,
then it's
got to be on me.
Yeah. I like that.
Well, it has to. I mean, it's
because someone else's gut feel, but yours is.
Yeah, it didn't work out, but it was your gut feel. So it's kind of that doesn't work.
Well, the buck stops with you, doesn't it? Really.
Well, someone said fish rots at the head. So.
Yeah, 100%. Communication was interesting though, because there is for me. I mean, communication is critical. If you are a leader of an organisation or you are a leader within an organisation, communication is probably one of the most critical skill sets that you can have as a leader. It's the ability to influence, it's the ability to communicate, the ability to connect, the ability to provide clarity on strategy and where we're going and why we're going and all the above, right? What does your communication style look like?
Oh, look, I'd like to think for me, maybe in context, for me, communicate. It's not just as a CEO, I'm dealing with stakeholders.
Yeah,
that's a big part of my job.
Yeah,
pretty much everything you deal with stakeholders is you're talking about a future state.
yeah,
You're talking about what you want to do or why you're taking a decision, whether it's employees, whether it's boards, or whether it's government, whatever it is. And if you don't have that clarity of communication, it's a struggle. And I think one of my strengths is I hope I've got the ability to break it down into, I won't say dumb it down because that sounds the wrong word, but really
simplify
the whole thing. I mean, we're not a complicated business.
No.
And just make it simple.
Yeah.
You're selling a vision.
Yeah.
That's what you're selling.
Do you think the people on the wharf would look at head office and go, yeah, they got it right. They've simplified this enough? Or do you reckon that there is those layers of communication where Chinese whispers can start and things get a bit hazy?
Yeah. Look. I think as a business, our communication strategy has got a lot better. I think in the past, as you mentioned earlier, it wasn't that long ago, Daniel, that it was do as I say, and that's it.
Yeah.
Where comms was basically that. But now it does have to filter down. So every level of leadership or management or whatever structure you have, you've got to put a communication through all those levels of the organisation.
Yeah.
It's not easy for some people.
No.
And to get it down to the guy on the wharf, it might be going through 2 or 3 different levels of communication.
And their interpretation and their perspective.
Yeah. So to try and get around that, sorry, what I generally do, each quarter I do a video that goes to all the staff. I mean, again, it's hard for us because we'd have 10, 12 remote sites, so it's hard to communicate with everybody. The only way of doing it is to put a video out and put a link in it so everybody can read it.
Yeah.
Everybody can listen to it and watch it.
Yeah.
Which I think hopefully breaks down some of those issues that you might.
Do you tailor the video to the audience, or is it just one blanket video?
You've got to you've almost got to tailor it to all levels.
Yeah,
I mean, you're a leadership team that should know it anyway, so it's not tailored to them. I've got a senior leadership, or we've got a senior leadership team that's involved in most decisions, so they understand.
So it's broadcast to the masses.
It's broadcast to the masses.
Yeah.
And with the caveat, and I still have people that if you don't understand it, ring me.
Yeah.
Or come and see me.
100%.
Ask me.
What does a message like that on that video look like? Is it strategy? This is where we're going. Is it that future focus thing that you're talking about?
A lot of future focus.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also something that I think in the past we haven't done well that we're trying to do better is also, again, we talk about that reflection.
Yeah.
People want to understand, okay, we get what you were saying is why you're doing it, but let us know how we're going.
Yeah.
Now if you want to get people engaged within the business and take ownership of what they do, you've got to share everything.
Yeah. Transparency.
Absolutely, yeah.
How do you manage the... Look, I'm asking this question on the fact that we work with a lot of clients who are an engineering and blue collar, academic, administration, clinical, administration, all the different worlds, right? So there's always two worlds, and so ports would seem to me there's the wharf versus the administration, right? Like I'm just going to blanket that rule over the top. It might be right. I'm probably way off, but how do you, as the leader, and working with your leadership team, create strategy and execute on it, and then communicate the changes throughout the organisation in a way that is received well by the masses, if you want to call them that. So I think my question comes from the point of view is that we've seen in many organisations that the bottom row of the frontline staff, I should say, they are, when a decision gets made or when some changes come through, it's like head office don't know anything about us. They don't know way things are run here. They don't like. How do you combat that situation? Because we see it time and time again that decisions are made, changes are made, and they haven't taken into consideration all the different perspectives and context of what is happening on that front line.
Yeah.
Do you guys have a process for that when you
look? Depending on what it is, I mean, there's a lot of decisions made that you just quite simply just don't have the time or the manpower to do that. I think when you have material changes within the business. I mean, we tend to work with a lot of subject SMEs that we take from right through the business.
Yep.
So we try to have a fairly consultative approach and get people involved from the ground up.
Yep.
And that's the only way you can, for me, that's the only way you can do that.
buy-in, yeah.
And you've got to get that buy-in. But again, it can't just stop when the decision's made, because if you don't give feedback to people when you start trying to execute or the end result, the next time you do a change, man, you say to people, okay, we want you to engage, and they say, well, what's the point?
Why? Yeah.
Well, what happened to the last one? It's just constant.
And that's where the change fatigue comes in, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Being a CEO was something you mentioned to me last time we caught up, was something that you fell into.
Yeah.
You never set out as a junior, as a child, as a teenager, as a young adult to wanting to be a CEO. How did you, and we talked about positioning and seeing opportunity, how did you position yourself, though, to become a CEO? Was there, obviously you said you didn't go to university after, but then you ended up completing your MBA thereafter. But there is something about being in the right place at the right time and positioning yourself so that you can be ready for a CEO type role. So this question comes from the point of view of those who are up and coming leaders and looking at, what's my next opportunity? There's so many opportunities floating around right now. Yeah, some advice for those young and up and coming leaders. Yeah,
look, it's for me. You're right. My journey was I never looked at it until probably I got a couple of years into Adelaide, and then I started to look at things like, got involved in things like strategy and even getting more involved in probably more in depth in leadership and culture and things like that. And that I guess that bred my interest in thinking, hang on, I'd actually probably like to lead a business if I had the opportunity. And luckily, I was in a business that could. That I had the opportunity to do that. But if you're young and up and coming, you've got to, a lot of it is the right place at the right time, but you make your own luck in a lot of what you do. And again, that I can't highlight again, it's a case of taking the opportunities that come up for you. I think, listen.
Yeah.
To me, it's about listening. I was very fortunate that I had I've worked for, not a lot, but a lot of really good leaders. And who ask questions, take mentors, have people to talk to, and you end up putting yourself in the right place at the right time. And as I said, a lot of it is around luck, but you make your own luck in a lot of respects.
So when you say listen, because you've said listen a few times, and I love the art of listening. I run a podcast, so for me it is super important in being remotely good at what I do. To say the word listen, there has to be, in my opinion, and correct me if I'm wrong, there has to be an action after the listening. What does that action look like? Because you can listen and you can seek to understand. If we get into the 7 habits, the Stephen Covey. So listen and seek to understand.
Yep.
Do you listen with the intent to respond? Do you listen with the intent to just accept? Do you what? Or is this where the emotional intelligence kicks in? All of.
You listen with the intent. If you need to respond, learning how to respond.
Yeah.
If you need just to listen to learn, do that.
Mm-hmm.
You need to listen to understand what people are expecting of you and how you do that. And it's all of. The end result from listening can be a whole various things. But if you don't listen, you're just never going to know. And
agreed.
Yeah,
Do you believe there's a skill set in listening and absorbing, and not letting that hit your ego, hit that little chimpanzee that's screaming at you inside? Do you know what I'm saying? Because there is listening where you can listen to someone and go, they've clearly off their rocker. They got no idea what they're talking about. Yeah. How do you manage that situation?
I think that's where, look, I'm a firm believer if you're good enough, you're old enough.
Yeah.
But there is a little bit of experience that comes into understanding how you react to certain things.
Yeah.
And in context, you've got to understand the context of of A, who's saying it,
Yeah.
and B, the environment you're in where you say it. So I think you learn that as you go along. I don't think there's never one size fits all to any of this.
No, I agree.
And a lot of it's on you to actually, if you listen, you've got to learn.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Since becoming the CEO, what has surprised you the most?
Oh, that's what they don't tell you.
Yeah.
What surprised me was someone said to me when I started, they said to me, this is a really lonely gig, You're going to start. And I thought,
yeah, we've spoken about this.
No.
Yeah.
I think pretty quickly you realise that it is. I mean, there's times where, simply you have very few avenues to run your ideas through and talk to people through. And so it does get pretty lonely at times. And decision making, you're making decisions that affect people's lives, some in a material way, and a lot of times there's no one there to help you. You've got to make a decision yourself.
Why do you think it's lonely? As in, and I want to ask that point from the point of view of, can't you just be out there and boisterous, or do you think there's a way you need to carry yourself and hold yourself as a CEO that stops you from doing that? I mean, there's all the above again.
Yeah.
But does it need to be lonely?
No, I don't. It probably doesn't have to be.
I think we're all struggling. I think any CEO listening right now is probably pondering that question, right?
I think you've almost got to get the right support network around you as well at times, and whether that support network is home, is family, is partner. It's whether that support network is a mentor, whether that support network is a chairman or a board. I think you have to have a support network around you to be able to bounce ideas off, to be able to talk these things through. As I said, often you're making pretty significant decisions that sit with you.
Yeah.
And you need people to bounce ideas off.
So I think I just said you support network and family absolutely one of my core values, right? I am so really interested in your thoughts around. It's a question that I ask quite a few CEOs as they come on the show. And it is around the family aspect of it and the management of business as well. So how do we really pursue and realize our visions? So as a leader and as a ambitious human being, there's some sort of ambition if you're a CEO, right?
Has to be. Yeah.
So how do you have these visions and these goals set for your life, but do that at the time of cultivating a loving and thriving family relationship as well.
Yeah.
How do you manage the two?
That is a tough one. And I probably the easiest way to describe it is my experience with this. If you look at when I was married quite young and had 2 children to my first wife, and it was all around work. I mean, it was what I got from Dad. It's work ethic. You go and I guess the priorities weren't the family and children, what have you. You don't love them any differently. It's just that you don't spend as much time there.
Your mindset was somewhere else.
And then I had kids at an older age as well, where my priorities were totally different. My family came first, my kids came first. And then if I go back even further, I had a father who spent, as I said, he spent 6 to 9 months of the year travelling, so work was everything to him. Great dad, you're on well, but that was his priority. I have a strange, I don't have much of a relationship with my 2 sons from my first marriage, and I didn't have a great relationship with my dad. I have a great relationship with my daughter. And to me, there's a connection there between where you get your priorities and what, where the input. And we talk about work-life balance. And to me, it's real. It's, and where does family sit in that? And sometimes family's a contradiction in what we do as well. I mean, we've just talked about a support network, and part of my psyche is I try to make sure that when I put that key in the lock, in the door at night, work's gone. It's never gone.
It's not.
But
no.
And you walk in and you're just.
You can try as much as you like. I'm yet to compartmentalise that world out.
But then the contradiction is we talk about a support network, and if you don't go home and your partner's a really important part of the
Without
process
doubt.
here.
Yeah.
But in one way, you're trying to separate work, and the other way, you're actually, need them as a support network. Is a contradiction.
Yeah.
There. So the whole work, the whole family issue is something that I think a lot about. Yeah, it's.
Do you look back at your first marriage with your two boys, and do you wish that you had your mindset now?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. Most definitely.
Is there an opportunity to rekindle that, or is it sort of just the?
Oh, look, I think you have to keep trying.
Yeah.
They're your kids. You never stop trying. But this is where, work, home life, your personal life, and work are two very different beasts.
Yeah.
I mean, the difference. It's almost like work is that comfort zone. It's transactional. It's never personal. It's you make decisions. You walk in there. It's almost, I won't say robotic, but you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
For me personally, my personal life scares the crap out of me.
Yeah.
Because it's not I won't say it's more important. Of course, it's more important, but it's just it's a different dynamic. And that's something that I think I've probably struggled with as much as anything.
There's so many different flavors of emotions that go on in a family environment than what there is at work. I mean, work, like you said, robotic's probably the wrong word. I agree, but I know exactly what you mean. Like it can be black, white, grey, whereas family, the family dynamic is just a rainbow, isn't it? Like it's just different. It is just a different situation, and then you throw in love, right? Like I know, did they give us that shiver? And I think like that for me is the one thing that that I always say this. I like family first, and we run a family first business here, and that is an absolute fundamental. But I ask that question of pursuing visions because there are parts of me that go, yes, I absolutely would say here categorically, I'll give up everything just if it meant being, my kids needed. But then there's a part of me that sits with me and I go, well, like, no, like I actually really love what I do. I love the fact that I have the ability to change. I love the fact that I can create value. I love the fact that I get to meet remarkable human beings and sit with them. I don't really want to give this up.
But you can think about that because you don't have to. You
Correct.
don't have to make the decision.
Yeah, that's right.
If you actually have to make the decision, I think I know which way you go.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's.
No, yeah, I know. Yeah. You're right. It's the privilege of being in it. Yeah.
Look, it is.
Yeah. Do you maintain a level of concentration on your mental health as a CEO?
Probably not as much as I should, and probably for someone like me, it's probably, it's there's parts of it that I probably don't concentrate enough.
Yeah.
But also for me, it's a little bit of a. I have pretty much a morning health check. I have to. That's part of. Yeah. That's part of.
What does that look like?
Just working my way through the day and getting up, and for me, it's really remembering that I'm really lucky. I've got a wonderful relationship with a beautiful.
So you practice gratitude.
Absolutely,
as part of that,
because you got to get it in context as to I got a great job. I'm really fortunate. Life's pretty good to me, and every morning I'll have a little health check with that.
Yeah, okay. So gratitude every morning, is that like part of your
day?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
I set out to do the gratitude thing. Yeah. I do it for 1 or 2 days, and then I cannot make it a habit. I don't know why.
Yeah, but I have to because otherwise the day can start in a hole.
Yeah.
So that I've trained myself to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you would do? Is like meditation, running, exercise? Like, is a switch off? You talk about the key and the lock, because we are really working in a ball of twine, right? There is just so many layers, and it's all connected,
and we're all wound up.
And
look, for me, part of it is being healthy and having a level of fitness is really important to me. It's important to me on a whole bunch because I think I'm a better partner at home. I think I'm a better father. I think I'm a better leader at work. So fitness has always been pretty important for me as well. But But apart from that, there must be there would be other avenues there that I probably don't pursue that I probably should.
Yes. I'm really interested, and we talked earlier before about the advice for a young and up and coming CEO.
Yep.
Right. But I want to talk about the new generation of the workforce that's coming through. It is a different mindset for some of the younger generation. How do you and the team and the leadership team work with the younger generation coming through and provide mentoring, provide support, help develop? Is there anything that you pay attention to in that space?
Look, I think the generations coming through, I think, have been a challenge for a lot of us. In as much as we were brought up in you kind of like, hello sir, no sir, 3 bags full, sir, the leaders. Yeah. And now a generation that which is actually, once you embrace it, it's actually quite refreshing. Who just treat you as just another employee. And so we talk about dynamic and flexible environments. Well, that part and parcel of being a leader as well. Yeah. You've got to accept that life is different now. Employees are different. I'm not going to start quoting Maslow, but people have different motivating factors, and you've just got to accept that. And any leadership team has to. The only thing you can't treat. There's no one size fits all with employees. Yeah. You have to adapt your style to those people. Yeah. Otherwise, you've lost them. And I actually think it's quite refreshing.
I think so too. I think
it's.
I don't mind the millennials and whatnot that come through. I think your comment there around there's no one size fits all plays into the hands of culture and the culture of organisation. And you mentioned you've got to be flexible and all these things. Is there anything that you are doing culturally to continue to harness these new thought processes that are coming into the workforce whilst maximising the experience of the workforce that you already have? Like, how are you playing that cultural song?
Look, I think culture never. It's never a static moment.
No,
culture is this long lead thing that just evolves and evolves and evolves, and that's part of the culture of the business. Is we talk about creating an environment where people can flourish and people can be innovative and people have thought and people can be who they are, and that's the kind of culture that I hope that we're creating within the business. But there's little things you've got to do, like encourage people to give feedback. But you give feedback. And if people come up with good ideas, then act on those good ideas. And if people make a mistake, work with them through that and train them and develop them through that and mentor them through that. It's this ever-evolving piece that you have. And we weren't good at it a little while ago. And we're trying to get there. We're trying to improve now. You do it because it's a better place to work.
Yeah, no doubt.
And the second piece you do it is because we're all in a war for talent here.
Yeah.
And you've got to do everything you can to provide an environment that people want to come to work.
Yeah. So tough question. Would people listening in, anyone from Flinders Port's listening in right now, would they be like, yep, we're actually seeing this cultural shift. We're seeing this move.
Look, I would hope so.
Yeah.
Not everybody.
No.
It's not.
Yeah.
But I would hope most people would say that they're seeing the shift.
So it's on the agenda, it's on the strategy. That's the videos that you're talking. This is where we're going. You're trying to be flexible. We're trying to create a culture of welcomeness and health and well-being and all the above the things that go into.
I think you get there, when you stop talking about it, and it just becomes part of your business.
100%.
If you're constantly having to talk about how we improve the culture, I think you're probably not getting there.
Yeah.
I'd love to stop talking about it and it just happens. It just evolves.
Yeah. Culture just is.
Culture is. Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. Great way to finish. I'm just conscious of your time, so couple of questions before just to round off some of the questions, and then we'll jump into a quick fire.
Yeah.
What does the future of Flinders Ports look like? I mean, when we talked about the 50-year plan and taking all that into play, Is it something that you're really keen to continue growing and expanding, or is it consolidating and improving, or like what does the future of Flinders Ports look like?
Look, I think if you look at the evolution of our business, I mean, I think it's incumbent on us, or me on us, to continue to grow the business. You have to. Yeah. I mean, we're
grow the footprint, grow the people, grow the businesses involved with
everything. Yeah, great. Everything and above. I think if you look through our journey for the last maybe 4 years, you talk about laying foundations. For me, it was, my sense was when I took the role, and I mean, it's a really success. So I was really lucky. I inherited, the role from a really good CEO. Yeah. So the business was in great shape. But for me, it's almost an evolutionary stage where you build the foundations for the next stage of growth. Yeah. And I think we're now at the stage where we've built those foundations, and now it's it's ready to go to its next stage. Next stage of growth.
Can you give us some insights? Or?
Look, it's very much within South Australia. We had businesses outside of. We were looking at growing interstate. Yeah. Strategically, we took the direction of we exited that business. So our strength is in South Australia. For me, strategy is a lot about you form your strategy around what you understand and what you know. You don't form a strategy and then try and learn on the job as you're trying to execute it. So for us, this is the market we understand. So we'll look at how we provide services through, get more involved in the supply chain, how we bring more cargo through the ports. We have catchment areas, providing supply chain solutions for people. So there's a whole bunch of areas that we can get involved in with that. At the end of the day, with us, it's about growing trade. Yeah. Yeah. It's not much. It's pretty simple.
It's been the gateway, isn't it? Really. So what does the future for Stewart Lammin look like?
Look, I love what I do. I mean, I think I'm really fortunate. I came to Adelaide, 18 years ago now, for a short period of time. I'm here out of choice. I'm here because I enjoy it. But legacy for all CEOs is, it's picking the right time to go, making sure there's a succession plan in place. So probably, there's parts of the strategy of the business that I want to see through, and then maybe it's time to have a look and see where we go from there. But
do you love the CEO role? Do you love being in the CEO role?
Yeah, I enjoy the responsibility and I enjoy the accountability. And if we talked about advice to young people who want to see it, you got to be prepared to take accountability for what you do. Yeah, and that no matter what happens in the business, no matter who makes the decision, you're accountable for it. And you've got to accept that that's, that will always be the case. But I actually enjoy that.
Do you think the accountability piece, sorry, I should have rounded this up, but I want to ask this question. Do you think the accountability is crucial for all leadership, right? But it's actually quite a tough thing to do. It's tough to hold someone to account, isn't it? And I'm really interested in your process around when someone who you trust, you like, they work in your organisation, they're actually a great human, all the above, but they're not delivering on what they say they're going to deliver on or what you've agreed that they're going to deliver on. How do you manage that situation?
Well, it depends on it depends on the context. And the stark reality is there are times when you have to exit people out of business. That's
even if they tick all the boxes, they're great for the culture, they're just not hitting their...
There are reasons why you have to do it.
I'm just...
And that's not a nice part of the job.
It's cutting the arm off, isn't it, really?
It is, but part of the job is you've got to make decisions that you don't like.
Correct, yeah.
It's
the
unpopular decision. Yeah. I mean, if everything was easy and going fantastic...
Then everyone would be a CEO.
Of course.
No, I know. I wanted to draw that out because we've had many a CEO on this podcast and was it Flavia... Nardini, the CEO of Fleet Space Technologies. I use the arm. I was like, if there's a cancer in the arm, you cut the arm off, and that's. And she said, I've got a nicer analogy. Whereas, if you have a plant and there's a leaf on the plant that is dying, right, and what happens is that 80%, 90% of the water goes to that dying leaf. Yeah. So the attention goes there. So it's about snipping off that leaf.
Because quite often you've got to think not only the impact that person's making on the business, what impact is that person making on the other, if it's an executive, the other 6 people.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. Beautiful. Excellent. Thank you. That's been amazing. We're going to jump into some quick fire questions. These are a bit of fun
Okay.
to finish off. If you don't have any answers, that's fine. We'll jump to the next one. But, I'll push a little bit until I get it.
Of course you will.
We're big readers here. We love books. I've brought up a few. Is there anything that you're reading right now?
I'm not going to give you a plug, but I have to. You gave me, is it Culture Inc?
Culturing, yeah. Michelle, my business partner, Michelle's book, Culturing.
I picked that up 2 days ago.
Yeah.
And I've started that. It's fantastic. But because trouble with reading, Dan, is, I read so much.
Yeah, no,
I never
it's the
stop
government
reading.
Yeah, I know.
It's kind of like if I sit in bed and think, what am I going to read? I just
Yeah. Move to audiobook. I've been telling Michelle, get your bloody thing on.
But I've started reading that.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
It's a good book.
Yeah.
Is there anything that, any type of book that you feel that stands out from the crowd? Something that you have recommended? We talked about Stephen Covey's before.
Well, I was going to say that's probably it's probably the only development book I've ever read.
Yeah. Well,
where was that? 89, 90?
Yeah,
That's got to be a long time ago.
So for context, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey.
Yeah, that was, I remember that, but probably at that stage as well, for me, that was probably an important read for me.
So do you read strategy books? How do you learn? How do you continue to evolve? Is it just through experience? And
For me, it's,
and the mentors and
absolutely.
Yeah.
I like listening to people. I enjoy, listening to, other CEOs and MDs and leaders and people like that. But you got to, for me, it comes from me.
Yeah.
It's got to.
Self-reflection.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jim McDowell, we had Jim McDowell, CEO of Nova Systems, on the podcast. He's the same thing. He's like, I've never read a personal development book in my life. I read an old literature and I take my learnings out of there, and so I do like that lesson. What's one lesson that's taking you the longest to learn?
Trust. Yeah.
In self or in others?
In others.
In others.
Yeah. And, look, I think trust myself probably not as much, but trust in others, I think.
And what do you mean? Like you struggle to trust someone? They need to prove themselves to you? What's that look like?
Probably just struggling to trust people. Yeah, probably with me as much as anything else, me and also in work life.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm getting there.
And so you're still working on it? It's a work in
Still
progress.
working. I think the work bit I've got. I've got a great group of people at work, so I'm pretty fortunate with that. So
yeah, I'm probably almost on the other extreme. I just start trusting someone the moment. They're the best bloke ever. Like Gabs is like, how many best mates do you have? I'm like, oh, geez. Yeah.
Everyone's a mate.
If you could invite 3 people for dinner, who would they be?
Oh, that's a good one. I really enjoy understanding how people operate under duress or stress. So, first one for me is always going to be Mandela.
Mandela,
27, 28 years in jail.
Yeah.
Smiled every day.
Oh.
Came and led a country.
What a story.
How do you keep yourself
remarkable
together for that period of time? So he would be one. More modern one is I'd love to understand Zelensky. I think Ukraine is something. How he's managed to.
Well, he's an actor, wasn't he?
I don't know. You see, I don't know his background.
He was an actor that got into politics.
It's probably not a bad background for him.
I know. He had to act somehow.
But interesting to find. This is. How does he spend his day? How does he get up every morning?
We talked about COVID earlier with you and worrying about the health and safety of your people. He's got the whole country. This is ridiculous. I'm with you. I don't know how.
Yeah. And what would be the third one? Do you know what? It's a personal one. Probably my mum. Get my mum back because there's a whole history of my family that we never ask questions, and I probably want.
So your mum's passed now.
My mum's passed as well. Yeah. And it's kind of like I think being an East End family, I think there's a few skeletons in the closet I'd like to unravel, but that's probably the 3.
She'd probably ask some curly questions towards
I was going to say,
Brilliant. What's some of the best advice that you've ever received?
I think one piece of advice, I think my father gave me once. He said to me, you don't have to be the smartest person in the room, but be the best prepared.
Yeah, okay.
And I think for me that was always, and he was a firm believer in, as best you can, walk into a meeting knowing what everyone else is thinking. So it's all around preparation. Yeah.
Side note, do you like before every meeting, how much prep do you put in?
A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were giving me shit before about this podcast.
No, but it is. I mean, I speak to, I had a chat with one of our executive team. As I said to him today, I said, you got to do the preparation and understand. And, if you can walk into a meeting with 7 other people and you know the answer that those 7 people are going to give you, that's the preparation. Understand. And if you got to understand where the objections are going to come as well. So be prepared for that. We have board meetings. You got to do your prep.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
It's probably an area that I fluctuate in. There's some things that I put so much prep in, and there's some things like I'm just actually going to wing this, I think.
But I'm the same.
Yeah.
It's just that when I go into meetings, I have to be prepared.
Yeah.
A lot of other stuff, it's, you wing it.
Yeah. He said that quite quietly. He said he wings it a lot. If you had access to a time machine with, sort of like only one trip, sort of up and back, as in you're not allowed to go in multiple places. You could pick one point in time and go there and back. Where would you go?
One point in time.
Yeah.
To see.
And that doesn't have to be back. Could be forward too. By the way,
I was going to say it's got to be forward. Yeah. Probably. I mean, I've got to have a personal thing.
Yeah.
I transport me back to 1966 and watch England win the World Cup. That's I'll be pretty happy with that. That's probably the one thing.
Well done. If your house was on fire, your family, your pets, everyone, they're all safe. What's one thing that you would run in and grab and save?
Don't need anything else.
No. Yeah.
Family's safe, pets are safe.
Yeah.
I've got the memories.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Everything's on cloud these days.
Exactly. Yeah. The Commodore 64. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a question because we've had some people run in to save a family heirloom or an old blanket or.
I'd never know what to say.
Yeah.
I'd end up getting stuck in there.
I know that, right? Yeah. You'd trip over all the stuff you carry.
I run pretty light. Stuff.
Yeah. If you had one superhero power, could choose one superhero power, what would it be?
Fly.
To fly.
Yeah.
It's just a boring answer. It's the same answer to everyone.
But it is. It's just.
No, I know.
Just to be able to do that.
It would be. Yeah. I'm scared of heights though.
Oh, see, I used to be, but I kind of got over that.
Yeah. I reckon if you're flying, you're not scared of heights because you know how to fly.
Depends how high you fly.
Yeah, well, that's true. All right, to finish off, this is one of my favourite. I hope you bought a dad joke.
Oh, yeah, I had to think about it.
Did you?
Yeah.
You bought one, though?
I did.
Yeah, excellent. What's your best dad joke?
Why does a duck have tail feathers?
Why does a duck have tail feathers?
To hide the butt quack.
It's horrible. I love it. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Stewart, for coming on the show, sharing your story. Obviously, there was some personal conversation that we had, which you shared with us, which was really amazing to get your insight. And thank you so much for having the courage and vulnerability to share that story with us. And thank you for all that you're doing for I think the people of South Australia are all sharing in the delights of those goods that get delivered.
Now they're getting here.
They're getting here, and you and the team and all the great work that you guys are doing out at the Flinders Ports, and also thank you for sharing your insights to leadership and the ideas of being a leader of an organisation and all the little tricks and tips that you've given throughout the course of the conversation. We really appreciate it.
Pleasure. It's been fun.
It has been. If people would like to get in contact with you and get in touch with you, how? Firstly, are you open to that?
Absolutely.
And secondly, how would they do that?
Oh, look, probably. I guess something like LinkedIn is probably the easiest.
Yep. So Stewart Lammin on LinkedIn.
That's it.
Beautiful. Excellent.
Fantastic.
Thank you, everyone. We'll catch you next time. Thanks for listening to the podcast all. You can check out the show notes if there was anything of interest to you and find out more about us at SynergyIQ.com.au. I am going to ask though, if you did like the podcast, it would absolutely mean the world to me if you could subscribe, rate and review. And if you didn't like it, that's all right too. There's no need to do anything. Take care, guys. All the best.